I want to talk to you about a premonition. So if you have a premonition that something bad is going to happen, can you change the outcome? Can you actually change the outcome? And there's a few things that I want you to understand in this. So I had a client, I'm going to change her name because I don't want to use her name. I don't know. I may use her name in the future, but for today, I'm going to change her name. So let's call my client Maria. Maria was a young woman with 3 children and a husband. And she had a premonition, a dream, that she and her 3 children were standing over her husband's grave. She dreamt this. Absolutely freaked her out. And she woke up and woke her husband up and said, I dreamt this, like she was in bits. She was really crying. And her husband just laughed and said, don't be so stupid, like you're just working too hard. It's just a dream, just ignore it. Anyway, she used to ride a bicycle and she used to work nights, and on her way home one morning, early morning, she was riding her bicycle home and she rode past a field and she saw a coffin standing up, like a standing coffin in the middle of the field. She absolutely freaked out. This was shortly after she had this premonition dream, and she rode home really fast, got home, woke her husband up and said, oh my God, I've just seen a coffin in a field. I had that dream the other day that I was at your grave with the children, and now I've seen that coffin in the field. And of course her husband laughed, because it does sound nuts, doesn't it? Like you would laugh. So he laughed and laughed it off and said, don't be so silly, don't be so silly. And he'd been making all sorts of jokes about, you know, if he died, she wouldn't get anything. His insurance all goes to the children, you know, that sort of thing. Like just joking with her. And she said, stop joking about your death, because I've had that dream, you know, like I'm freaked out. And he said, don't be so silly, don't be so silly. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but you know what happened. So they were at a party, they got in a car with a couple, and there was a terrible accident. And her husband died. Everybody was in the car, her children as well. And I'm not going to go through that story. I might do that in a different video. I'm going to speak to her first about how she feels about that. But basically her husband died in that moment. And when I started treating her, she used to come to me for healings. And when I started treating, because I could communicate with her husband, and I think I was the first person that actually ever got her husband. So I think she went to spiritual church a few times. She'd been to a few mediums and nobody had managed to connect to her husband, but I did. Well, he connected to me because, you know, they either connect to you or they don't. So he connected to me, and I was able to tell her quite a few. I mean, her whole healing journey was with me. So it was really nice to be able to go on that journey with her. I learned so much, because all spirits teach you something. Like they're all willing to they're very giving. I found that with all my clients. I always used to say, they're so giving, you know, like although they're your person, they're so giving and loving towards me as well, and willing to teach me stuff. So I found that fascinating. Anyway, her husband passed away, and when she went to the funeral parlour, she first walked in, and as soon as she walked in the door, she saw that coffin standing up against the wall, the one that she'd seen in the field. She saw that there. And obviously the image at his graveside was her holding her 3 children's hands, looking down into his grave. That was the dream that she'd first had. So I started doing lots of work with her, like lots of work, some coaching, healing coaching. And we did this for a few years. She's still a client of mine. Like I still see her. She does loads of the immersive meditations. And I started working with her in this way. And she kept saying to me, I just don't get it. Like if life is what you want it to be, like if we're so powerful, why couldn't I stop that from happening? Why couldn't I have stopped that? Should I have said, no, we're not going in that car, or we're not? I said, no, because let me explain something to you. You still have your sacred contract. You still have the sacred contract. That was the day he was going to die. End of. If he hadn't died in the car crash, he would have choked on a peanut and died, because that was the end of his contract. That was the day that he was going to die. So when you get a premonition, can you change the outcome? Not always. I think you can only change the outcome if nobody's reached the end of their contract. So I think it's worth trying to change the outcome, obviously, but don't start blaming yourself if you can't change the outcome, which is what this woman had done. I think there was an element of, if only I'd said no. But you can't, if it's the end of a contract, a sacred contract, you can't change the outcome. There's nothing you can do. There's absolutely nothing you can do, because even if you try and interfere with the process of dying, they're going to die a different way. Like, when it's their time to leave, they're going to leave. And there's nothing that you can do. And that's true of all of us. So premonitions are, you know, they don't always feel nice. I can tell you that now. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. Sometimes you can change the outcome, but you can only change the outcome if you're not interfering with a sacred contract. So I just wanted you to know that. I think it's important that people understand that. And I think I might just be helping quite a few people with this video too. I hope that you're one of them.